Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to France once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now I know there are many French beer enthusiasts watching the channel these days thanks to the Joica video, so I just want to give a huge shout out to you guys as well. Hopefully we can do some more French reviews over the next wee while and do beers that you guys have access to. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today comes from a brewery that I've never tried anything from before. These guys have, however, built a very strong reputation for themselves in recent years. The beer itself is a style that I very much enjoy. It's also part of a little series of beers they released quite recently, from what I understand, and it has a little bit of a Scottish twist to it. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Angoulême, which is in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region in the west of France. It's kind of to the southeast of La Rochelle and to the northeast of Bordeaux. And I do apologise for any bad French pronunciations in this video. It's been a long time since I did French at school. But we are going to have a little look at my first beer from Brasserie La Débauche. So this beer comes from their Kings of Oil mini-series that they did. It is the Peated Whisky Barrel Edition. So this is an Imperial Stout coming in at 12% ABV, and it has been aged in Scotch peated whisky barrels. So yeah, this should be very, very interesting. But like I said earlier, I've heard very good things about La Débauche, and it's very cool to have another French beer to review for you here on the channel as well. So let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Brasserie La Débauche. Like I said, this is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers here on the channel, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. Just go to the search bar, put whatever you're interested in there, and if I've reviewed beers from that local area, they should pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the French playlist along with other beers, and hopefully we can add more to that list in the near future. So if you are watching from France or the French-speaking world, let me know some good beer web shops that you guys know, and we can see about ordering some of those beers to review here on the channel. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. And on to my brewery notes from Brasserie La Débauche. So, Brasserie La Débauche, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Angoulême in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region in western France, a little bit to the southeast of La Rochelle and to the northeast of Bordeaux. But the company was founded back in 2013 by Églantine Clément and Aurélien Camandon. Again, apologies for the French pronunciations. But Églantine comes from a background in teaching. She was a French teacher, whereas Aurélien was a blacksmith who specialised as a farrier. I'm not sure exactly how to say that, but this is essentially someone who makes and fits horseshoes. But these guys are both beer enthusiasts and also graphic design enthusiasts, and they started to experiment a little bit with home brewing, and they turned professional after getting some very positive feedback on the beers that they were producing. So they started the company with just 70,000 euros. They got a loan from one of the banks, but they very quickly found that this just wasn't enough money. But after this, they really struggled to get further finance from the banks, and on the back of this, they released a beer called Slap a Banker, which was an American barley wine, just as a kind of tongue-in-cheek way to stick two fingers up to the bankers who wouldn't give them finance, even though their business was growing very well. But they continued their growth via crowdfunding. They got a lot of support from people who were supportive of the brewery, and on the back of that, they've been very, very successful in recent years. They've expanded the brewery a number of times. Today they're producing around 1.5 million litres of beer per year, and they've got a tap room on site at the brewery as well, where you can go and try lots of different beers. Initially they were just selling the bottles to people, but yeah, they now have a tap room on site which also serves food. But as of January 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 260 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they've done a whole variety of different styles. If you have a look through the Untappd page, there's IPAs there of various different sorts, there are lagers, there's imperial stouts, barley wines, you name it, these guys have done it over the last few years. But yeah, I think that is everything I can really tell you about this brewery. Like I say, as of January 2023, 260 different kinds of beers, lots of different styles. So yeah, that is really all you need to know about them. So if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So as I said to you earlier, this beer comes in at 12% ABV. It's an imperial stout and it's been aged in peated whisky barrels. So with me being Scottish, as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I love smoky things, be it German Rauch beer or Scottish peated whiskies. So this just really kind of caught my eye. The name Kings of Oil was a really interesting one, but this beer was actually sent to me by Riku, my Finnish beer mule. I saw this one on the Alco website and told him that I'd be really interested to try it because I hadn't tried anything from La Débauche and I recognised the name. But yeah, it basically says on the side here that this beer is part of a 4-part series of beers that La Débauche did. So they have 4 different versions of Kings of Oil. There's one that's been aged in rum barrels, one that's been aged in a rye whiskey barrel, one that's been aged in tequila barrels, and then there's this one which has been aged in a peated whiskey cask. But yeah, I just thought this would be really nice. We haven't had too many French imperial stouts, and yeah, La Débauche, like I say, have a very good reputation amongst the French craft breweries. But you can see really nice artwork on this one, quite simple, but it's still effective and nice. And for those French speakers among you that are watching there, you can see the little blurb that I've just described. But on top of the bottle, you can see there is the bottle cap, if it can zoom in properly, Brasserie La Débauche, there you are. But yeah, 12% Imperial Stout aged in peated whiskey barrels. What's not to like about that? But yeah, as I say, a big thank you to Riku for making this review possible. The other thing I'd like to point out to you on this bottle there, maybe you can see it, the La Débauche brewery symbol there. Kind of reminds you a little bit of these doctor hats that you used to see the ancient Romans and things wearing. So yeah, I remember that from Assassin's Creed. You would go to the medicine guys to get healed and things, and they would have hats like that. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what we have. So the Kings of Oil Peated Whisky Edition from Brasserie La Débauche in Angoulême in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region in Western France. Let's get this guy out and see what it's all about. And as I said earlier, if any of you are watching from France or the Francophone world, do let me know some beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review, and let me know as well where I can find these beers on the internet. I know there are some very good French French beer web shops, so I will look into that and see about doing an order at some point in the near future, because the French beer scene is awesome. There's some really good breweries out there. They just don't get much publicity outside of France. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect of an imperial stout. So when we poured it, it had about a 1/4 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of dark fawn coloured head. I'll just let you guys have a little look at that. It has faded away very, very quickly, but yeah, some small bubbles on the surface of the beer there, and a few bigger ones just going further up. But yeah, that head has faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer. There are a few little wispy things just sitting on top, and you've got a nice kind of foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But overall, it looks pretty much as you would expect of any imperial stout. So this one has a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour to it. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well. But yeah, when it comes to imperial stouts, it's very difficult to change the colour of these beers because of the presence of the black malt or the special B or whatever is in there. So yeah, much of the colour of an imperial stout is determined by the type of malt that you use and the length of your wort boil. When we shine the light through this one though, you do get a little bit of that kind of Pepsi Max, Coca-Cola Zero chestnut coloured edge to it. It has got a little bit of that going on. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones just going up toward the surface there. But overall, it does look very nice. And like I say, this dark ebony rosewood colour is pretty much exactly what you would expect from any imperial stout. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the aroma of this beer. Yeah, I'm just going to say the aroma of this beer is right up my street. Absolutely love it. Yeah, aroma wise, this is really, really nicely done. Yeah. It's not often that you'll come across a peated whisky barrel aged imperial stout. In fact, the last ones that I had, I'm pretty sure, were from Finland. I can see why it was this one that was imported to Finland. You know, they've got sati up there, which is this big smoky, oily drink that it's really lovely taste wise, but it's very, very heavy. But we had some really nice Scotch whisky barrel aged imperial stouts from Finland before, and so yeah, to have this one from France I think is very cool too. But yeah, this beer is lovely. You get the kind of lovely smooth Russian imperial stout on top, and you get the kind of dry Scotch peated malt whisky barrels just sitting underneath this one. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together I think is really nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, interesting stuff. Let's try and break that aroma down for you and just describe it a wee bit more in depth. The other thing I'll point out about this beer is that it has this kind of vanilla-y, butterscotchy, oaky character that just jumps out of the glass at you. That's really interesting. But yeah, let's break it down a wee bit more. Actually, the aroma of this beer really reminds me of some of the Swedish whiskies that I've come across. There, I don't know if there are French whiskey distilleries. I know cognac, of course, is a big thing down in France, but yeah, actually brewing whiskey, there's a number of different countries are doing that these days. But yeah, it reminds me, the aroma of this beer reminds me of the Swedish Smogen whiskies. There's just something about it that jumps out of the glass at me. So I wonder, maybe they've used a Smogen whiskey barrel or something like that. But anyway, yeah, let's break this aroma down and describe it a little bit more in depth for you. So, backbone of the beer, absolutely you can smell this lovely smooth oaky backbone from the barrel aging. There's a little bit of vanilla in there. So yeah, there's a little touch of vanilla in there. There's a little bit of a kind of butterscotchy kind of character, and you can also smell the kind of whiskey spirit in there too. But like I say, the whiskey spirit that you get out of this one is very smooth and very sweet. There really is something in this in the aroma that reminds me of Swedish Smogen whiskey, because the Swedish Smogen whiskies are very smooth, thick and oily and sweet like this, but they have that peated element to them too. There really is just something setting off my contextual memory here. But like I say, lovely smooth oaky backbone, a little touch of vanilla in there. You can smell the whiskey spirit, but then within that you've also got quite a little bit of a butterscotchy, butter candy type note to the beer. But then you start to get some lovely roasty toasty elements out of this one, that roasty toasty well-fired black malt. There's also a little bit of a sweet rye bready character to it. So yeah, I like how that goes together. So yeah, roasty toasty well fired backbone, sweet rye bread crust in this one, and then above that you start to get some of the brown sugary notes out of the beer. It's almost got a little bit of cakey character. So you've got the well fired bread crust, the sweet kind of rye bread. You do get a little bit of that kind of peaty note in this one, which is a little bit more Scottish. You know, you've got that grassy, bright smokiness in there, which I think is quite interesting. So you've got that, yeah, like I say, you've got that whole brown bready, rye bready character in there that just smells a little bit of peat. It's like peat infused. And then above that, you've got the brown sugary element. So there's a little bit of a toasty kind of well fired brown sugar in there. There's a little bit of a leathery character as well, like maybe this beer has had a slightly longer wort boil when it's been brewed originally. So there's a little bit of leathery brown sugar, a little bit of toasty brown sugar, good little bit of treacle and molasses coming out of the beer as well, and then also some brighter sweet caramel in there. So there's a lot of layers to this beer actually. So it smells, in a sense, it's a bit like a Christmas pudding in some ways, but you've also got the peaty elements in there and then the woody barrel just sitting underneath it. So the way that everything pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very interesting. So it gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. But yeah, aroma wise, the malty and barrel aged side of this beer is really quite quirky and quite unusual actually. On the hoppy side of things, with this being a barrel aged beer, most of the hoppy character has actually kind of dropped out of it, and you can tell that, but you still get a little touch of earthiness out of it. There's a little touch of earthiness in there, there's a little bit of floral character, and there's also a wee bit of grassiness, but like I say, those take a back seat to everything that's going on with the woody, the barrel side of things, and the malty character. But when it comes to the fruity side of the beer, this one's quite interesting because, like I say, the beer does have a little bit of this almost Christmas puddingy, Christmas cakey side note to it. So yeah, you've got a little bit of that kind of Christmas puddingy type quality to it, but then yeah, you've got a little bit of raisin, you've got a little bit of a juicier plum underneath. There are elements of kind of dried prunes and dates and stuff like that as well. And you've got a little bit of the kind of oily fig, the blackcurrant and the blackberry coming out of the beer too. So yeah, I do really like how that I do really like just how all of that pieces together in this one. So it gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. Yeah, aroma wise, this beer I think is really quite nice. So yeah, fruity wise, it's really interesting. But like I say, there's just something about this beer that makes me think of Smogen Swedish whiskey. I would be very curious to see what that has, because the Smogen whiskies are one of the more oily and sweet ones that I've ever come across. So yeah, lovely aroma to this one, and it sets off my contextual memories in lots of different ways. I'm curious to see whether this big oily smooth sweetness that the beer seems to have in the aroma carries over into the flavour. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it, but I think it is time that we taste this beer. So this one is the Kings of Oil Peated Whisky Barrel Aged Edition from Brasserie La Débauche in Angoulême in western France. Let's get stuck into this. An Imperial Stout at 12% ABV. Slàinte, skål, cheers, santé. Ooh. Yeah, I'm going to say straight away, it's a wee bit different to what you kind of pick up in the aroma. It's definitely nowhere near as kind of big and chewy and sweet as the aroma would have you believe. But this is, I'm going to say straight away, this is a lovely, lovely Imperial Stout, this one. You do have to be careful when it comes to Scotch whisky barrel aging. And I think, I'm changing my tune a little bit here because I was talking about Swedish whiskies before. You do have to be careful when it comes to Scotch whisky barrel aging, because these flavours can kind of dominate the flavours you get from that type of barrel aging can dominate a beer, but it works with this one. And on the basis of the flavours that I'm getting from this, I think this is most likely to have been aged in one of the Islay whiskey barrels. You know, maybe as I say, well, Talisker is Skye, but you know, I think, for example, maybe, you know, Lagavulin or Ardbeg or something like that. It feels like it's been aged in an Islay whiskey barrel, this one, just because of the amount of peat and the dryness and stuff like that you get out of it. But yeah, this is definitely a kind of lovely, a heavy, peaty whiskey barrel aged, roasty, toasty Russian Imperial Stout, this one. This is a lovely beer, and it's right up my street. Some people really wouldn't like this because of how smoky it is and how dry and roasty and toasty it is. But for me, coming from the Scottish perspective and being used to these sort of things, I really like this one. So a big thumbs up to Brasserie La Débauche for trying this. I think it's turned out really well. Out of the three in this one, probably the ones that are most appealing to people would be the rye whiskey barrel one and probably the rum barrel one. The tequila, I don't know, I've not had too many tequila barrel aged beers, but this and the tequila one are probably the two of the more quirky out of the four Kings of Oil beers that they did. But like I say, this is right up my street, and I can see exactly why they would make this one available in the Finnish market. They would love stuff like this when you think about Sati. Yeah, but as I say, I like this one, and a nice first impression of Brasserie La Débauche. But let's take this beer in a little bit more and break it down and describe it for you, as we always do. So, yeah, this is just a lovely beer. I need to get a few more beers from this brewery. I need to get some more French beers from new breweries that I don't know to try on the channel. That has to be a goal for 2023. But yeah, middle third of your palate then with this beer. We'll start there. The backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely smooth oaky character to this one. You can tell that it's European oak because it is just that little bit drier, and it's not quite as sweet. If it was American oak, it would be brighter and sweeter, but the oaky backbone that you have in this beer is a little bit dry but still quite smooth. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, within the wood, you get a little tiny bit of vanilla there, and above that you can feel the whiskey spirit, if you like. The whiskey itself actually comes across as quite sweet and quite bright. So I am wondering a little bit, you know, like I say, it could be, I'm trying to think, could it be like a Lagavulin barrel or something like that? Because Lagavulin has that brightness to it, but the smoky character is still quite strong. Could be a Lagavulin barrel, but it could also be something like Arran, which shows you a little bit of everything. Arran whiskies show you a little bit of peat, a little bit of sweetness, and so on, which would make sense. Either that, or it could, you know, Smuggin, the profile of the woody and barrel aged characters in this beer really fit Smuggin whiskey for me. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But the barrel side of this beer is great. The smooth, you've got the woody character in there that has a little bit of dryness. It gets smoother the further forward you come on the palate. You've got the whiskey spirit on top of it, which, like I say, is quite a bright and quite a sweet whiskey with a little bit of aromaticity to it. And then you've got a little bit of vanilla there as well. But yeah, above the whiskey spirit, you've got a little bit of a roasty, toasty, well fired sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, you've got that roasty, toasty, well fired. Above the whiskey spirit, you get a little bit of that roasty, toasty, well fired backbone to the beer, which is typical of the Russian Imperial Stout. So that's there. Then you have a little bit of it's a mix of a kind of like rye bready and cakey type note to the beer. It's a little bit like a chocolate brownie or chocolate muffin. So yeah, above the whiskey spirit, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, a little bit of a kind of dry, chocolate cakey, chocolate brownie type note. Within that, you're getting some of the peaty, smoky character as well. This beer does get more woody and smoky and things the further into the aftertaste that you go. But above the kind of cakey layer in the beer, you get some of the chocolate. There is at the back of that middle third of your palate, there's like a really high percentage cocoa chocolate, you know, probably about 90% cocoa chocolate. But as you move further forward in that chocolatey layer toward the front third of your palate, you get a little bit of a more you do get a little bit of a more kind of 60-70% cocoa chocolate. It's still dark chocolate. The chocolatey elements in this beer are very, very dark, but yeah, you can still feel that the chocolate kind of mellows out a wee bit as you come further forward on the palate. But in the middle of that that middle third of your palate, above the chocolate, you start to get some of the brown sugary notes. So there's a little touch of a leathery layer of brown sugar in this one. Then you get the kind of treacle molasses in there, and then in the dead centre of your palate there's a sweet caramel. So there's a lot going on in this beer, but this is definitely an old school Russian Imperial Stout aged in some kind of peated whiskey barrel. Like I say, there's a few elements that remind me of Smogan whiskey. There's a few that remind me of like Lagavulin, for example. It could be a few others, but those are the two types of whiskey that come to mind. I don't think it doesn't make me think of Ardbeg. I would love to know what barrel they've aged this one in though. But yeah, the middle third of your palate in this beer is really nice. And like I say, the further into the aftertaste you go, you start to get more of the dry, woody character pushing its way through. You get the peat coming out of this one, and it's got quite a grassy and aromatic character to it, and you can feel some of the sweeter elements of the whiskey pushing its way out too. But like I say, in terms of the beer itself, this is a very, very nicely done one, and it's right up my street, having that smoky and more roasty, toasty character to it. You don't come across this all that often when it comes to stouts these days. But yeah, this one certainly has piqued my interest and got me going, if you like. So thumbs up to Brasserie La Débauche for this beer. I really like this one. So yeah, in terms of the middle third of the palate, we've said everything that we need to. So we can go on and have a little look at the back third of the palate. So that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of cakey build up there, and it's like it's a little bit like a Christmas pudding sort of thing, that, you know, that kind of well-fired bit of cake that gets stuck to the baking tray. It's quite like that. So you've got that kind of sweet, you know, really highly caramelized brown sugar and the kind of Christmas puddingy sort of thing. But the base of that back third of your palate, you've got more kind of dry, woody character in there. You can feel that the whiskey spirit is also there, but it feels a little bit crisper and a little bit more toasty in a sense. And as I always say, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more bitter and dry flavours come out further back. But above the whiskey spirit, you start to get the roasty, toasty, well-fired backbone. It feels quite smooth there. Then you get the kind of cakey layer out of this one. So it's got a little bit of this kind of Christmas puddingy type layer. Then you've got a sweeter rye bread above that, and then a more kind of wholemeal brown bready character there. So you've got all these layers on the back third of the palate too. Above all of that, you start to get a more kind of yeasty quality out of the beer. So it feels like a more light, airy, brown, farmhousey, bready character. There's definitely some kind of honeycomb in there. I always get honeycomb at the top on the back third of the palate with these beers. It seems to be regardless of what style, but definitely getting some of that kind of honeycomb, sweet brown bready kind of woody character coming out of it. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes together in that sense. The back third of the palate, where it shows its more yeasty character, is really nice, but you can tell from the middle third of the palate, it's very layered. On the back third of the palate, everything is very layered too. So you've got this nice tall bready layer on the back third of the palate, then you've got a more condensed one. So like I say, back third of the palate, the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, everything just squashes together and condenses down. So yeah, the flavours in this beer are very, very nice. In terms of the hoppy side of the beer then, let's have a wee look at that. So, yeah, the back corners of the palate, when it comes to the hoppy side of this beer, as we said earlier, whenever you barrel age a beer, a lot of the hoppy character is going to drop out. The Imperial Stout is not the most hop forward style of beer anyway. You can age these a little bit and the hoppy character will drop out more and more gradually over time. We need to bear this in mind, but there is still a little bit of hoppy resonance, or is that the right word to use? There is still a little bit of hoppy character residing in this beer. I think that's the phrase we're looking for. But yeah, it does. There's nothing on this bottle that says about how old the beer actually is. So that's something to think about with this one. But I do still get a good little bit of hoppy character in this. There's a nice little bit of earthiness in there in the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward, there's a little touch of a herbal quality, but you get more and more floral aromaticity the further forward on the sides of the palate that you come. Round the front curve of the palate, it's a wee bit more lighter and grassy, and it still retains a wee bit of zestiness there. But like I said, you could age this beer more and let the hoppy character drop out of it even further. That's your own personal choice, but as it stands, however old this beer is, I think it is very nice. We are filming, incidentally, in January of 2023. But I think that's everything we need to say about the green component. Let's focus on the front third of the palate and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of kind of cakey build up there. It's like a Swedish chocolate cake or chocolate brownie, chocolate muffin. The base of the front third of your palate is a little bit more, you still get some of that nice kind of dry woody character. You get a little bit of the whiskey spirit, but then you also get a little bit of that chocolate cakey note. And then above that, you've got that oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. That is nice. On the fruity side of things, it is kind of, as we described in the aroma, to be honest with you. This is one of the areas where the beer really agrees with the aroma. So when you take the beer in, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of raisiny sharpness in there. You get some juicy plum underneath, but then you get the more dry fruity characters. You get the prunes, you get the dates, and yeah, I think that that goes together really nicely. But the further forward on the palate you go, the dates kind of spread forward. You get a little touch of a figgy character as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, and as you push into the front half of that front third of your palate, you start to get a few other things going on. So you get the figs, you get the black currant in there as well. There's a little bit of you can feel that the whiskey spirit is really influencing that, so you have this whole boozy character underneath the beer as well. I can feel this one going to my head already. This is 12%, so it's a bit of a monster, and it has a bit of a kick to it, so you can feel that. But like I say, in the middle of that front third of your palate, you start to get a little bit of figgy character, whereas before you've had the dates and the sultanas and things. So yeah, a little bit of a figgy character in there, and as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, there's some black currant and a little bit of blackberry on top of that. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is really it has got a good little bit of phenol and a bit of boozy and cakey character to it. But yeah, the way everything goes together in this beer for me, it is really nice. It's definitely to my taste. I can see this would be, out of the 4 beers that they've done in this Kings of Oil series, this would be one of the more quirky ones that would... This is a whiskey lover's beer. I think that's a good way to put it. The tequila and the Scotch whiskey barrel aged one, or the peated whiskey barrel aged one, would be the 2 more quirky out of this series. The rum and the rye whiskey would be more along the lines of someone who is a proper beer nerd, if that makes sense. Yeah, this is a really, really quirky beer, this one, but I love it. I have to say, it's a bit more of I think it's fair to say this one is an acquired taste, but I think we can leave it at that for the tasting side of things with this beer. So, to round off my review of this beer. I think we've covered everything we need to in the flavour. I would say it's a full-bodied beer. It's at the bottom end of full-bodied though. As I always say, when you barrel age a beer, you sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel. I'd be very curious to try the base stout of this beer and see what that's actually like on its own before the barrel aging, which probably is possible, judging by the number of beers that this brewery had. But for me, I think I'd be very curious to try that original beer. But yeah, like I say, bottom end of full bodied for me. The carbonation is very smooth. It's quite silky and it has a little touch of oily character to it. In terms of the IBUs, this has got to be about 70-ish IBUs, something like that. But always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt. It's my weakest point in beer reviewing, I feel. But I would say, yeah, about 60 or 70 IBUs, this one. It's got a good little bit of dryness to it. Some of that comes from the roasty malty character. There is a good little bit of hoppy note to this one too, and the woody barrel aged side of things gives you the impression of a bigger dryness, but lovely big malty character to it. Sweetness in there, a little bit of dryness. You've got the smokiness there too. The malty character in this beer is absolutely lovely, but you've got a good cakey quality to the beer. You've also got all those kind of fruity notes as well. Yeah, I think the way this beer goes together is really nice too. So you've got a mix of kind of brighter fruits, but also a good little bit of drier fruity character to it as well. But needless to say, I've really enjoyed this one, and this to me proves a point that I've spoken about many times on the channel before, is that the French are very capable when it comes to craft beers. They can pull off things like this, and this potentially is one of the best French craft beers that I've ever reviewed on the channel. I think we've done about 30 of them in the 10 years we've been doing the channel. So yeah, this is absolutely worth trying, and I hope that we can do some more beers, both from Brasserie La Débauche and from other breweries around France going forward. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this was the Kings of Oil Peated Whisky Barrel Aged Edition from Brasserie La Débauche in Angoulême in Western France. Really enjoyed reviewing this beer. Yeah, this is a monster, and I'm going to go away and enjoy the rest of this. I can feel it going to my head. But yeah, really cool to review another French beer for you here on the channel. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brasserie La Débauche as well. Give me some French brewery recommendations and beer recommendations too in the comment section below. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Until then, Slàinte just now. Check out my social media. Check out La Débauche's social media. And I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and santé.